Welcome to Zealous Conversations, where faith meets fervor. We dive into inspiring stories, explore scripture, and discuss how to live out our faith in today's world. Join us on this journey to deepen our relationship with Christ and strengthen our spiritual walk. Let's get zealous.
Welcome back to Zealous Conversations. I am Brother Jonathan, and over there is
Brother JJ.
And we're having a talk today about a difficult subject.
Really
It took
difficult.
us 15 minutes to come up with a title.
Yeah, we sat here scratching our heads.
So I guess our title is going to be Gender and Confusion.
Yeah.
Because, man, today is a day of confusion. It's very sad.
You grew up in a very different time than I'm growing up in. So this is kind of that dynamic that we've got going on.
Absolutely.
Where you didn't see hardly any of this in your time.
Nah, we didn't have any words like these words.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted to say they're gender confused or something like that. This, oh man, gender specific, gender, all the different genders. We just looked up the list of all the different genders.
Yeah.
On a website called, what was it?
Sexualdiversity.org.
.org. And there was how many? 100 and what?
107.
107. Inconceivable in my day.
You know what's weird about that is that there's 107. Shouldn't there be like an even number?
Well, yeah, but I don't know. You have several people that don't want to identify with either one, you know. So there's a male and a female and a
none.
neither.
And a neither. There it is. There's the odd number.
So there's the odd number.
So we're talking about, specifically in this podcast, transgenderism, transsexualism.
Gender fluidity.
Yeah. Did a little bit of research. Came across some information, and we were being taught that there is a new method of teaching sexual identity to younger children, going by the name of the genderbread man, kind of like the gingerbread man, but the genderbread man. And it focuses on 4 points of identifying your gender.
Yeah, gender is not simple. Gender is complicated, and there are 4 ways to evaluate it.
Do you remember them?
Have no clue. One of them's your head, one of them's your heart.
Identity, what you think in your brain you are. And then your sexual orientation or your heart, what you're attracted to.
Okay.
And then your biological, what you were born with.
Yes.
And then your expression, how you express yourself. Those are the 4 points.
Of the gingerbread man illustration.
Of the genderbread man illustration,
yeah.
Yes. So we...
and they're teaching that to little kids.
And every one of those is fluid. You can change them, and they're different. And that's how you come up with the list of 107 different genders, because each one of those is its own. You can feel like this, but act like this, but think like this, but have an attraction to this. And everything is
it is
free
confusing. And one of the problems we got is people of my generation just laugh about it or just make crude jokes about it or refuse to engage with it when it is what people are dealing with in our day.
Yeah, it's all over.
And when it is just another evidence that people are confused and sinful and do not want to follow God's way.
That's right.
Just in this way, just like any other sinful way, somebody who is homosexual, somebody who's addicted to gambling, somebody who has cheated on his wife 12 times, somebody who has a potty mouth, somebody who's a gossip. All of those things are sinful. All of those things separate us from God, and all of us are involved in those things.
Yeah. I mean, sin is sin. Sin tears you away from God. Sin is sin, whether it's the attraction of male to male, female to female, or an alcohol addiction. You know, it's...
Or confusion of, am I a man? Am I a woman? Am I something else? Am I some other thing?
Sin is sin.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we're talking about. And I have a resource here in front of me, and it just kind of talks about what transsexualism is. What it is, transsexualism, also known as transgenderism or GID, which is gender identity disorder, or gender dysphoria, is a feeling that your biological, genetic, physiological gender does not match the gender you identify with and or perceive yourself to be. These people feel like they're trapped in a body that doesn't match their gender, and they practice transvestism or transvestitism, and may seek hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery to bring their bodies into conformity with what they believe their gender to be, their perceived gender.
And how did they get this confusion? How did they get this perception? You know, it can be put on us very early. Many years ago, when I was a young man, a child, we had a pastor at our little local church in a small town, Texas, you know, and he was a great guy. We loved him. Mom and Dad really enjoyed him. We went over there and hung out with them at their house. They came to our house, their family, you know. And then one day he was just gone, you know, gone. Moved out, gone. I was a kid. I didn't know what happened to him. I don't remember what my parents told me, but years later I discovered he was a transvestite. He was dressing in women's clothes. Wow. And he got discovered. And that the church paid for him to go to a counselor for some short period of time, which was pretty enlightened for behavior back in those days. Usually, unfortunately, people just wrote that off and acted like it didn't exist. But through that counseling stuff, because my parents were good friends with with that family, they found out that his mother dressed him. She had wanted a daughter. And when he was very small, she dressed him as a girl and did his hair and put makeup on him, apparently made him out to be a girl. Wow. And so this is coming back out of him, 30 years later.
He's a grown man.
Yeah, a grown man. And when he apparently got under stress or, there's some sort of trigger event, and he would dress like a woman.
Wow.
And I understand that he got counseling and became, healed, or he had a revelation, came out of that, didn't have to do that anymore. But it was complicated. It was deep. It was something put in him when he was young. How do people get gender confused today?
Well,
can be things that happened to them when they were kids.
Yeah. Sexually related trauma.
Right.
Is a big one. People just, when something like that happens to a child, they're just all confused.
Some influential adult says, you throw the ball like a girl. Some beautiful woman looks at this little girl and says, you'll never be beautiful like me. You look like a little boy. These things hit us, right when we're vulnerable.
Yeah, just kids being shaped.
Kids being shaped. The media today is very powerfully trying to shape kids.
That's
There's
right.
no denying that.
Yeah. I see that when I take my students, particularly the children, to children's camp. They all have phones and they're all talking about TikToks, and they all have social media. And
that's where they live.
Yeah. They're invested in what the media has to say.
And young people who are confused can get on TikTok and share their confusion.
Yeah.
And I'm not well grounded. I'm still maybe a little confused myself. I'm not sure that not almost every person doesn't go through a little period there of gender confusion when they're young. I don't know, but I think maybe it's more common than we would realize. And I see this other kid is having this confusion. It kind of makes me confused. You know what? That's kind of, I kind of agree with that, And now the confusion passes, from one to the next. Relating boys to girls, girls to boys as they're young teenagers, and they're starting to be have sexual feelings and discover the power of attraction, and they make an attempt. A little boy makes an attempt to say to a little girl, "Will you be my girlfriend?" And she says, "Ooh, no," and he's rejected. And he next moment he reads one of these. He watches one of these TikToks and. Maybe I'm not a boy, maybe I'm a girl, because girls don't want to go out with me, but if I'll be a girl, then, it won't happen,
Yeah.
Any
all
kind of
stuff.
experience could happen.
Yeah. Like I was saying, there's so much influence on kids that are being shaped and molded while they're so young. And like that genderbread man illustration, it's oriented for kids. They're teaching that in schools, 4 or 5 years old, who are just starting public school, and this is what they're being taught. And I remember being a little kid, girls had cooties. That didn't mean I was gay.
That's right.
It just means that girls were gross. And eventually, at some point, you get over that and you think, oh, maybe girls are kind of cute. You grow. But had someone said, oh, well, you don't like girls because you like boys, what is that going to do to a child? What is that going to do to a kid who's kind of trying to discover who they are and their role in society?
And it probably does happen to almost every kid at some point, teased about gender in some way. A little girl who's playing in the dirt and likes tractors. Well, you should be playing with Barbie dolls and having tea parties. Little boy who wants to sit around and paint or draw. Say, quit being such an artist. Go out and play football. That probably happens to every kid, but some people are hit at just the right moment. They have a little more vulnerability to it, and the result is this incredible climate of gender confusion today.
So this is kind of how we've gotten to this point. So what is the direction to head into? What is the goal for somebody who's maybe dealing with gender confusion or their identity, how they perceive themselves?
Well, the thing we ought to say right at the beginning with our little title, Gender and Confusion, God is not the author of confusion. When God created us, he created us in a world system. Everything you discover about science, the science tables, the elements, the law of gravity, the dirt, the way the water cycles, from the clouds to the earth, through the ground, back up again in evaporation. All of this is a very highly organized system.
Yeah.
And when God created man, he created man and woman, and they were not confused, and God blessed their genders. And God created those two genders on purpose, and one of the primary purposes of the genders is procreation, is to create new life.
Yeah.
The neat thing is we get to be involved with God in bringing new life into the world by the sexual relationship between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
That's clear, it's obvious, it's simple. So where does confusion come from? If God is not a God of confusion, where does confusion come from? It doesn't come from God. It's a apart from God situation.
I think it's really interesting. God and his omniscience, knowing all things. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Omniscience, knowing all things. He uses different words in Genesis. When he creates man and woman, he uses different words to describe the people he's just created. And he says man and woman, and then he says male and female. So there's your gender, and then there's your sex.
Yeah.
If there's any confusion, there shouldn't be.
Well, it's reiterated with the uses of the two different words.
Yeah, there's a distinction there, and God already understands. He knows there's a distinction, but you're still male and female, and you're still man and woman. This God is just that good. He knows those things. Confusion
is not of God, so confusion is of the devil. It's of the other side. And if the devil can confuse me with my gender, or he can confuse me by letting me justify my illicit sexual activity, or he can confuse me by making me think that this woman I married doesn't love me anymore. If he can confuse me in any way, if he can confuse me and say, God doesn't create you, you were evolved, highly evolved over billions of years, so there is no God. Anything that he can use to confuse us, he'll confuse us.
Yeah. And his goal is just to take our eyes off of God. And he's going to disguise it as freedom. He's going to disguise it as liberation. He's going to disguise it as you having your own power. And that's all it takes for some people.
That's the second word we need to look at. Confusion is a word. Confusion is not of God. Right. So if you're confused, there's a distance between you and God that needs to be mended. The second word is restraint. if there is a God who did create male and female, he is the one who gets to say this far and no further.
Yeah.
And the restraint that he put on us when he made us male and female was that sex, this holy act of procreation, joyful act of becoming one flesh, this belongs squarely and only and uniquely inside of a faithful marriage.
That's right.
A man and a woman who are clinging to each other, married for life. Then that's where sex is. In that sex, there's no guilt. There's no disease. There's no, outside issues, comparisons to former lovers, nothing like that. In God's system, he puts a restraint around sex. And that restraint is well known from Scripture. We said, well, no, I don't want God to restrain me. I want to have sex in other ways. Well, now I have stepped outside of God's restraint.
Yeah.
I have freedom. I'm enjoying, I'm expressing myself. This is a false view of what freedom really is.
Yeah. The boundaries that God has put in place for us actually bring us more freedom. They give us the ability to express and have love the right way instead of looking for it through other people. Multiple partners is what I mean. And if we would just practice love the way God tells us to, we would find love the right way. We would have a better example of what he designed it to be.
Well, and anyone who says, well, the restraints of God are limiting freedom and they're not healthy for my self-expression, they're simply parroting what the world and the culture has put on them. See, I don't know how long sitcoms, situational comedies have been on television, but marriage is a consistent theme of sitcoms.
Yeah.
And there's almost never a marriage on television in media that's presented as a happy, fulfilled marriage. I mean, the percentage is ridiculous. It's 90% of marriages in the media are unhappy marriages. And they're saying, oh, I'm so unhappy. I'm so unfulfilled. We don't have any sex anymore. It's so boring. This is everything that the devil would say to tell you, oh, God's way's not the best. God's way's never going to work. You got to find another way. And that is the essence of sin.
Yeah, that's kind of drilling into that confusion. The TV tells me that marriage is boring. It tells me that I should go and be who I think I am. And it just feeds into that confusion.
Well, and the other thing we need to talk about, too, is roles. Whose job is it to do this and that? Whose job is it to take care of the kids? Whose job is it to bring home the bacon? Do you know that phrase, bring home the bacon?
Yeah.
Do you know that? I didn't know if that was generational or what.
Well, now we call it breadwinning. Who's the breadwinner?
Who's the breadwinner?
Who's the breadwinner?
My dad tells a funny story. One time he had a kid. He had a guy on the job site. His kid was selling for a band or something like that, fundraising, selling meat. Boxes of meat. You get frozen steaks or whatever.
Yeah.
And Dad bought some bacon from this dude to help his kid in the fundraiser. And the guy's supposed to bring all the stuff to the job and hand everybody the stuff they bought. Dad's waiting for this box of bacon. Frozen bacon that he bought on the deal.
Right.
And everybody's leaving at the end of the day, and Dad doesn't have his bacon. Huh. And it got to be kind of a funny thing in the job shack. Everybody's leaving. Dad's saying, have you got my bacon? Hey, have you got my bacon? Hey, where's my bacon? I was supposed to bring home bacon today. It got to be a thing, But in our lives and in my lifetime, gender roles and gender expectations have radically changed. My mother did not mow the grass.
Right.
My dad mowed the grass. That was a man's job. My dad did not cook meals. I don't think I saw my dad cook a meal in my entire life growing up. My mother was the one who provided the meals. That's the way it was. Well, nowadays, we don't have those firm lines. Lots of men cook. Yeah. Lots of men prefer to cook. Lots of ladies are doing all the yard work. The roles are not the same. And so as the roles and the expectations of society over time have changed, it's kind of opened the door. Well, if that can change, then maybe my whole concept of gender needs to change. A fluidity has been introduced in the idea of roles.
Yeah, you can see that in all kinds of stuff. There's so much like women empowerment and feminism, all that. I think that's in the category of women shouldn't just be stay at home.
Absolutely, it's a reaction.
Yeah. So I kind of think about like, what about all these people that are struggling with this and they hear this episode? What is the thing that we want to give them?
Well, God bless you. We understand. I mean, people struggle with all kinds of issues. You are not unique in that you're having a challenge of understanding what your gender is. You're wondering if God made a mistake. You're wondering if you should be attracted to women instead of men, or vice versa. We are not going to stand around and say you're the worst of the worst, that you're not committing the sin that's the unpardonable sin. You do need to understand that it is sinful to practice any kind of sexual expression outside of the boundaries God set.
Right.
Now, transgendered persons who practice sexuality in a non-husband and wife, faithful, monogamous marriage are sinning sexually. So are homosexual people. Nobody wants to hear that today, but it's outside of the bound of Christian marriage. So is anyone who cheats on their spouse. So are people who are living together and not married. There are so many ways to sin sexually. People who are producing pornography are sinning sexually. Don't feel unique. I mean, sexual sin is all around us. Yeah. Okay? So just like people who sin in other ways, gossiping, hatefulness, racism, stealing things, becoming abusive, all of that is sin.
Yeah, sin is sin, like we said in the beginning.
And Jesus died for sinners.
That's right.
So the good news is, welcome to the club. You're a sinner just like I'm a sinner. And both of us need Jesus.
That's right.
To die for us and to rise again so that we can be saved from our sins. And following Christ is going to help you come out. Come out of whatever your addictive or your compulsive behavior or this thing that was put on you through your dysfunctional family. Think about just dysfunctional families and gender confusion. I mean, goodness.
Yeah.
A little boy whose daddy is out of his life, his whole life, who's a terrible absent father, and he's raised by a mother. She's a gentle, loving, sweet, hard-working woman. He identifies with her better than he does with any man. He becomes confused. Maybe I'm a woman too. Think about it. It's not so crazy. It could happen. It's not right. God created us male and female. So that's the ideal. I've strayed from the ideal. I need to come back to the ideal. I need to come to God. I need to find God by reading the scriptures, find God by going to a church, being open-minded. I need to be willing to realize that I could be wrong, and I might need to confess sin to God and be forgiven. And probably I need help. I need some counseling. I need somebody to talk to. I would love for somebody to be as honest as they could and just come up to me as a pastor at a church, say, Pastor, I think that I'm in the wrong body. Would you talk to me about that? Yes. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
When can we meet? Let's meet. Let's talk. I know very well that 10 years ago, that would have been met with a different response.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
We're sorry if that's happened to you.
We are sorry if that's happened to you. If religious people have judged you and perhaps cast you out or made you feel unwelcome, that's a wrong thing. Everybody is welcome in the house of God. But you're not going to come into the house of God and defiantly say, I'm not a sinner. All of us are sinners
I need
when we
Jesus
come before God,
as
and we
much
all
as you
need
do.
Jesus. I need him just as much as you do.
So, I want to share.
Yeah,
my
tell your
sister.
you told a great story about that, about your sister.
Yeah, my sister. I guess to close off,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
sister was on the phone with me the other day, and she had told me a while back that she has a friend named. She had a friend.
She had a friend.
She had a friend who was struggling with gender identity, and he confessed her feelings for her. And she says, "Hey, I totally love you as a friend. I respect you, but I'm just not really interested in your lifestyle and the way you live, and I don't have feelings for you. But, I still want you to be my friend, and I go to church on Sundays, and I would love for you to come." So this friend started coming to church and was interested in what the pastor had to say. They'd never been to a church where they had heard what the pastor was saying was making sense.
I wonder how many people who are gender confused have just really never engaged with God through a church or through the Word.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So he started joining my sister going to church, and eventually started going to like the Bible studies and stuff. And then told my sister very recently, "Hey, I think God is telling me that I need to make some changes, and I'm going to stop taking testosterone pills."
Yeah, this person had gone so far as to begin to try to adapt themselves physically.
And they just told my sister,
Not
"Hey,
gonna do it."
I think I need to change something, and I'm going to stop taking testosterone pills."
Isn't that amazing?
And God doesn't say, the beauty of the gospel is Jesus doesn't say, "Fix yourself and come to me."
Amen, brother. Say that again.
Yeah, it doesn't say, "Fix yourself and come to me." He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I will fix you as we go. I will change you. I will sanctify you as we walk together.
Think about that. I will give you rest. A confused person is not at rest.
That's true.
Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest. If you bring yourself to Christ, if you try to begin to rightly align with Christ through the Word, through a church, through a Christian friend, He will help you. He will begin to help you figure this thing out. It literally has happened to someone that's related to a person right here in this room. So it's not impossible. Finish that water and tell me what you think.
Yeah, I agree. So I hope you learned something from this podcast, and would begin to seek answers, seek a church, seek somebody, and try to get connected with a pastor or some sort of Christian that can help you get connected to a church.
We want you to have freedom and understanding.
That's right.
Very much.
God bless you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Thanks for listening.